Hello and welcome to Lodestore's Lending Leaders. As part of our summer season, we're going to talk about things very tangentially related to the mortgage industry and then see how much we can bring them back. So today we're going to dive into all things Marvel related, in particular the Loki series that just concluded on Disney Plus. So I really hope you watch it, and if you haven't, probably don't listen to this and if you think you want to watch it, because we're probably going to have some spoilers. But
There will definitely be spoilers ahead.
today is the legendary Alayna Gardner. I was trying to think from the best superhero comic title. I was going to say comical, but I like legendary. So
I think legendary is better than comical. I don't find myself to be a real comedic person.
This is basically a conversation that Alayna and I have every week or so that we've just decided
Yes.
to finally record. So hope those listening enjoy. The Loki Marvel series, like all of the Disney Plus series, was really awesome and really
Yes.
enjoyable. And I guess if we're going to try to compare any to the mortgage industry, this is probably our best bet. I don't know if you want to go into that a little bit, Alayna, of kind of any comparisons or just what you like about the series in general.
I mean, there's a lot of things to be loved about the Loki series. It's really Marvel's like first. They did a lot for diversity in this series, which is really great. And seeing that in media is really important, especially for young people. So that's really exciting to kind of see that shown. But I think more than anything, if we're relating this directly to the mortgage industry, I think the closest thing we could do is relate it to the TVA, which is the Time Variance Association or Authority.
Basically,
I'm
like
sorry.
the DMV for space and time.
Yes.
Mhm.
And one of the things that can be very frustrating throughout the show, and you see it throughout different moments, is kind of this bureaucracy, right? That prevents people from understanding and knowing the truth. And, we see Tom Hiddleston as Loki as well as Sylvie kind of fighting against this bureaucracy that is giving them no clarity around the situation, and they don't know who's actually in charge. And I think that can actually relate really well back to the mortgage industry. And does a borrower actually know where their loan ends up, right?
Mhm.
At the end of the day, like who's actually getting their money?
And there was kind of a moment in the show, it was kind of like a Wizard of Oz, like man behind the curtain type reveal, where you realize the people you thought were in charge weren't at the end of the day. And I think that's an interesting take of, who owns my mortgage? Who's in charge of the mortgage industry? Is Quicken doing this? Is Zillow doing this? Like, I think there's a lot of kind of like man behind the curtain analogies there of what exactly is happening in the industry, who's behind the curtain, who's controlling things. And I think the answer at the end of the day, the mortgage industry is really no one. There's some things that are, it's really just controlled by market factors, but that was not the case in Loki. They had a much more satisfying reveal
Yes.
than the mortgage industry. So.
There's not one giant man that when the clouds separate, he lives in a castle that just controls everyone's mortgage. So that would probably be cooler.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I'd Kang Mortgage. I don't know. We should go. We should go start that.
Yeah, I mean, if someone wants to, that's a great name for a
Yeah.
mortgage company.
For all time, too. That's a perfect like sales pitch for a mortgage industry. We're just doing marketing here.
We're
Right?
just doing
All time, always. But that definitely refers to building houses, I think. So
definitely refers to building houses, holding your loan, not selling it,
yeah.
being a servicing agent.
I think one thing that's kind of interesting too that you could actually tie it well to the industry is Loki is a character. He's from Norse mythology. He's the god of mischief, right? And he was responsible for one of the largest disasters in Marvel movie history, destroying all of New York about 10 years ago. And now, after you're still rooting for him, he still becomes a redeeming character. You don't know to really like him. If you shouldn't like him, is he going to be good? Is he going to be bad? It makes for really compelling television. Not dissimilar to some of the issues that the mortgage industry caused a little over 10 years ago. Now,
Yes.
like, are these the good guys? Or are these the bad guys? Like, I think that ambiguity there is one makes for great television, and I think is probably more true to life of, are these people completely good? Are people completely bad? The answer is
Yeah. And I think it's really important to say that I as someone that's newer to the industry, I've met both sides at this point. So I've met some of those people that maybe do some, you know, those people exist, but also I've met a lot of really great mortgage professionals. And I would say those very much outweigh anyone who would be in the negative aspect. So I think it's really just about redefining the image as a mortgage industry and really saying, what can we do to show our borrowers and consumers that we're really here for them? Like, yes, at the end of the day, we all have to make a profit. We all have to have our profit margins. They matter. But really the way to do that is to be genuine with your consumers and make them feel like they can trust you. Because if you can't trust the person that is going to basically buy your house for you, that you're going to pay for the next 30 years, who can you trust?
And unlike the TVA, people typically aren't brainwashed into working in the mortgage industry against their will.
That is true, typically.
Yeah, yeah.
So if you are, please let us know.
Show, I think this would sound very strange, but that's okay.
I mean, if anyone is brainwashed into being a loan originator, please just like send a red flag. I'll send someone to help you.
So looking forward, we're about 3 to 4 weeks away from the next Disney Plus Marvel show. I don't know how much we talked about this, but are you familiar with What If and what's going to happen?
I am familiar about What If. So I am very excited to kind of see a bunch of these different storylines play out and see how people react to them as well that don't know what they are.
I feel like we're going to have to do a What If mortgage version of like, what if this happened differently in the industry? I feel like will be fun. For our Marvel themed content too.
So we're going to dive deeper into the Marvel comic books real quick. So what was your favorite moment in Loki?
Him getting drunk on the train was really fun.
Oh, that was good.
That was really good. Then I think it had to be seeing all the Lokis in the 5th episode when they all just started turning on each other at the same time.
Oh, that was the major Loki fight was a lot of fun. Loki for president was good. I really liked that.
Too. Like everyone was double crossing each other at the same time.
Yes.
That was really fun. How about you?
I really liked when, oh gosh, why can't I remember his name? Our mustached fellow.
Mobius.
Yes, he pulls up in the pizza truck to save Sylvie and they're driving away. And I love that so much. I loved him I was so sad for like a brief moment when he died.
Owen Wilson was a great character. What are you most excited for in the 2nd season?
Oh, well, one, I'm excited. I'm interested to see if they are going to go before or after Doctor Strange. I don't believe they've announced that yet.
Yeah.
But I would imagine just with production timelines, it's going to, I mean, they could come back and set it before, right? Like they could.
It's like early 2023, I think. So they have time.
They do have time. So they could whip it out real quick. But I'm really interested to see kind of how they play with like the Loki Sylvie relationship.
Yeah.
Because it really feels like this moment of Loki has had this huge character growth, at least this version of Loki in this timeline that Tom Hiddleston is now playing. And I'm interested to see, one, at what point does he reunite with the Avengers, right? Because that will happen. He will come back somehow with,
Yeah.
So there's that. But I do think that more likely will happen in the Doctor Strange movie. I think they'll leave everyone else out of it because they're too expensive.
Yeah, I think people now are starting to realize how weird comic books are, and the fact that like now that they have established that there's just multiple universes, they can do whatever the hell they want in terms of bringing back characters, bringing back people. Like there are literally no more rules, which hopefully will make for some fun television.
I don't think people quite realize, like, Into the Spider-Verse came out a few years ago, and I don't think people quite realized that Spider-Ham, John Mulaney's character, was actually written in a comic book and is completely canon.
Yeah.
Like that is a normal thing. Spider-Verse is a full book that I actually
at one point. Throg, right?
Yes.
There was a Throg Thor called Throg.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you caught him on the way down. So there is an entire universe where every Avenger and every character is a animal.
Yeah.
So you just have to be prepared for that. And I think it's going to be really interesting to see
Yeah.
as they kind of break all the rules in Marvel, how DC responds as well. Because DC is kind of starting off, and there's a lot of, I know a little bit more about DC because most of the comic books in my house are DC. So
I think this is a good parallel too, especially when we talk about stuff in the industry. And like you look at Marvel and just the fact that over many years they just had such a plan for everything, of every movie tying into other movies and building on each other. And you know, it may not lead to the same kind of high highs that some of the DC movies had, but it is definitely been a better play in the long run because there's a lot more movies and a lot more interest, and generally they've done a whole lot better.
I think you have to set your expectation for yourself that you're going to succeed.
Yeah.
Because if you go into anything really with the mentality of, I need to make this in a way that if it fails, I've protected myself and protected my storyline, which I think to some extent DC has done in some of their movies, whereas Marvel has always said, oh no, we're reaching for the next thing. Like, yes, this movie is done. We're reaching for the next thing. I think that's,
but we're gonna let you, you know, do your own thing.
Yeah. And I think that's really important, is like, you should always really be reaching and looking at the next thing as you, you know, at all points, as we've said before, you should be lightly terrified.
Yeah. And trying to do something a little silly, like this podcast on Marvel and the mortgage industry.
Yes. But if you enjoyed this episode, please let us know. We are always willing to talk about Marvel.
We'll do a lot. We'll bring on guests. I think we may have to do a Star Wars one once we get some more Disney Plus content. I think we can probably bring some guests for that. So a lot more to come. But thank you for going down this nerdy rabbit hole with me for a little bit. I feel like we could have covered an hour here, but well, for the sake of everyone else.
Yes, we could talk forever. So if you want to hear us talk more about Marvel, just let us know.
Just comment and like it so we can do this again.
Yes.
Great.
Well, we'll see everyone next week. So thank you so much for listening.
Thanks all.